Life and fantasy football are going to be filled with a lot of tough decisions. And in life, if you're a parent, it's inevitable. You're going to have to pick a favorite child. I mean, you love them both, right? But one is going to be more reliable. You're going to be able to trust one. One is going to be able to help take care of you as you get older. And I thought to myself, I could probably help Jake out with this. He's going to have to choose a favorite child. Which one should he choose? And I already knew the answer. It's this one, not this one. Ladies and gentlemen, that might be a tough decision for you. It's not going to be for Jake, but come fantasy football drafts, I got a few pairs that might be a little bit more difficult to pick your favorite. Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners, feeling real good in here today because I'm going to help you make some really tough draft day decisions. I've got several big names at equal ADPs that you might be trying to figure out who would you take over the other. And since we're going to be talking about some ADPs, I think it's a really great time to remind you all that our friends over at Fantrax have an awesome giveaway going on right now that if you move an existing league over, if you create a new league, if you play your season on Fantrax this year, you are going to be put into a drawing to win tickets to any NFL regular season game for you and your entire league, including $6,000 in cash to help with travel expenses and other things. If you are going to be setting up a free account over on Fantrax to take advantage of this, make sure you go to fantrax.com/headliners. Use promo code headliners when you create your account so they knew who sent you over. It can be free. It can be absolutely free. So if you're playing fantasy football this year, I would highly encourage you to use Fantrax as your platform of choice. Well, tough draft day decisions, right? Who are we going to be hopping into? Well, first off, you got to hit that like button for me because at 1,500 likes, I'm going to give away a draft guide. And leave a comment down below on who was the most difficult for you to choose from and who you ended up picking. I'm going to pick a random comment if this video gets to 1,500 likes to give that draft guide to. And make sure you subscribe. You got to subscribe if you're new here. We just passed 150,000 subscribers. The first tandem that we're going to be taking a look at might be one of the toughest ones here, or it might be one of the easiest ones here to choose, depending on your thought process. But it is going to be Ja'Marr Chase, and it is going to be Justin Jefferson. Now, there's probably a lot of you already that are sitting there thinking to yourself, I know who I'm going to choose, but let's break it down anyway. Right now, Ja'Marr Chase is 9 overall, wide receiver 3. Justin Jefferson is 6 overall and wide receiver 2. The categories that we're going to be taking a look at are right there in the middle of the page. So, who is going to end up winning out through this battle of tough draft day decisions? Well, to start it off, offensive output is going to go to Ja'Marr Chase. I'm sorry, there's not too many offenses in the league that are going to go up against Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, and a team that we saw just take an incredible leap last year. If you're looking for explosiveness, it is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals over the Minnesota Vikings. So Ja'Marr Chase definitely going to take that first one right there. And why does offensive output matter? Well, you want offenses that are going to score points because it means more opportunity for your team, for your player to score points as well. As far as the team around him, I'm sorry, but I got to go with the Cincinnati Bengals as well, mainly because of the offensive line. And again, you've got Joe Burrow, who's a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. You've got better weapons around Ja'Marr Chase to help keep the pressure off. And you have got a much better offensive line. For me, when you look at the teams, you have to give it to Ja'Marr Chase over Justin Jefferson because Ja'Marr Chase, I mean, this Bengals offense has an opportunity to just be absolutely insane this year. But with that being said, just because Ja'Marr Chase has the better team around him doesn't mean he'll be more consistent than Justin Jefferson. And part of having a really good team around you means that you're also going to have troubles being consistent. The wide receiver one is going to be Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. There's no doubt about that. You're going to see Adam Thielen get his. You're going to see, Dalvin Cook popping up in the passing game, Irv Smith Jr. You're going to see Osborne making a little bit of a contribution again this year. But there's nobody that's going to consistently take away looks, targets, catches, yards, all of it from Justin Jefferson. So Justin Jefferson is 100% going to get the consistency because we know, like what we saw from last year, Ja'Marr Chase is going to have huge games, but then he's going to have lower games when T. Higgins breaks out, or when you give the ball to Joe Mixon 25 times a game, or when Tyler Boyd has a huge game. You're going to see Ja'Marr Chase disappear at times, whereas with Justin Jefferson, you won't see nearly as much. But even though Justin Jefferson is going to have the consistency, the ceiling is going to have to go to Ja'Marr Chase. One of the best big playmakers in all of football last season. You have to look at Ja'Marr Chase and his ability to send out high games and respect the fact that he is a guy that is going to put up games so big that it doesn't matter if you had anybody else on your team, he's going to win you that week. But even though he's going to have the higher ceiling, you got to give the floor to Justin Jefferson for the same reason that he's going to be more consistent than Ja'Marr Chase. He's going to have the better floor because he's not going to have to worry about losing out on weeks where somebody takes a ton of targets away from him, or a ton of touchdowns, or a ton of yards. You're going to look at Justin Jefferson and say, hey, he might not win me as many weeks as Ja'Marr Chase will, but JJ is going to lose you a lot less weeks than what Ja'Marr Chase will. In terms of schedule, if you look at the schedule, Justin Jefferson has an easier schedule. And if you own our draft guide, you can see this in the matchup meter section of the draft guide, where Justin Jefferson is going to have a better opportunity for his schedule than what Ja'Marr Chase will. Now, the hardest stretch of the season for the Cincinnati Bengals will likely be weeks 14 through 18. During that time, Cincinnati is going to face off against Cleveland, Tampa Bay. They're also going to have to end the season New England, Buffalo, and Baltimore. So for that reason right there, knowing that that is going to be such a tough stretch of the season for him to get through, I am going to go and hand it over for easiest schedule to Justin Jefferson, knowing that he's not going to have to go through that gauntlet to end the year. What about gut feeling? We look at the numbers, we talk about a whole lot of things. So I like to just kind of sit back too and be like, what is it that my gut is telling me? What is it that we see that says to me, yes, I want this guy? Well, if I had to pick that guy right now, it's going to be Justin Jefferson. Again, the consistency factor, the big playability, even though maybe it's not as big as Ja'Marr Chase, he's still going to rival it in a lot of areas. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns. As much as we hate Kirk Cousins, he's not the worst quarterback in the world. And if you look at this Vikings team, they might find themselves in a position where the defense isn't as good and they're going to have to be throwing the ball quite a bit. So my gut feeling again tells me Justin Jefferson is going to end up being the easier choice here between him and Ja'Marr Chase. And I believe for a majority of you watching the video right now, you're going to agree with me. But there is a much tougher decision coming up now that maybe we are going to be much more split on. And it is Joe Mixon and Najee Harris. This one is going to be a lot tougher. And if you missed it a second ago, we'll go back a second. Justin Jefferson ends up winning this battle 5-3. Justin Jefferson wins this tough draft day decision pretty handedly. But who's going to win this one? This one's going to be much tougher. Much tougher. So, in terms of offensive output, I don't think there's any argument here. We just talked about it with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense is not better than Cincinnati. That's a pretty easy choice in my opinion. When you talk about team, it's the same thing. With Joe Mixon, you're getting a much better offensive line. An offensive line that is going to allow you to be more consistent than you probably ever have in your entire career. It's going to allow you more efficiency. And by the way, you have so many big-time weapons and a big-time quarterback. quarterback, that is also going to give you some amazing opportunity as well. So Joe Mixon is taking the team. As far as consistency, I will go with Najee Harris. Najee Harris is going to be the focal point of this team. He is going to be a guy that is going to get the targets. He's going to get the touches on the ground. He's going to get everything that you want from a running back, even if some of that efficiency doesn't come because the team around him is not as good. There are probably going to be some weeks, like with Jamar Chase, where Joe Mixon disappears because you have so many weapons around him. But again, that leads to a higher ceiling for me than Joe Mixon over Najee Harris. Some of you are probably going to disagree with this, and you're going to tell me, Kyle, Mixon doesn't have a higher ceiling because he doesn't get the passing game work. I don't care about that. Is the volume going to be there for Najee in the passing game? It will be. And what is that going to do? It's going to give him a higher floor. So on a weekly basis, I will give Najee Harris a higher floor because we know he's going to get that type of workload that we haven't seen from Joe Mixon in the past. Now, Joe Mixon ended last season extremely strong in the passing game. And if you don't know that, you can go back and check out my next 1.01 video where I talked about Najee Harris and Joe Mixon both and what they needed to do to be the first overall pick next season. I included them with several other guys that I thought could end up making that jump. So back to ceiling and floor. Joe Mixon, because of how efficient they are and how much they could be up, they could still give this guy 25 carries on the ground, whereas with Najee Harris, you might not see quite 25 carries, and the opportunity to be as efficient will not be there. But if he ends up getting more targets in the passing game than Joe Mixon, that's going to help him out on a weekly basis. Now for the schedule, it is going to be Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is going to have a much better start or much better stretch of his season or a much better start to the season than what Najee Harris will. But now, here's the one thing though, and this is why I gave it over to Joe Mixon. If you take a look at our draft guide at the hardest stretches of the season for multiple teams, you're going to see Cincinnati and Pittsburgh both show up there. Now, Cincinnati's toughest stretch of the season will come during the playoffs. I get that. However, Najee Harris, he has a gauntlet from week 1 through 6 to start the season, and that is going to make it very, very tough on him to get started and really get you out to a good start. Cincinnati, New England, Cleveland, you do get the New York Jets, but then you get Buffalo in week 5, and then in week 6 for Pittsburgh, you've got Tampa Bay. Now, after that, it doesn't get much easier. You've got Miami, Philadelphia, you're going to have New Orleans in week 10. So Pittsburgh's schedule is still going to be tough. Now, when you get to the playoffs, Pittsburgh's schedule will ease up just a little bit, but you're still going to have Baltimore in week 17 that you're going to have to try and face off against. So the Najee Harris schedule, while it's a little bit better at the end of the season than Joe Mixon is going to have a much easier time getting started than what he will finishing the year. So that's why I'm going to be giving that nod to Joe Mixon. Now, in terms of gut feeling, you all already knew what was coming here. It is Joe Mixon. I think he is set up for, in fact, the best career year that he has ever had. He's got the best offensive line he's ever had. This offense is cooking as a whole. He has an opportunity to be efficient, score touchdowns. There's nothing about Joe Mixon that you can knock him on other than he doesn't get the passing work. And I get that, and I understand why that makes you frustrated. Don't worry, I understand that. But in my gut tells me, based on everything you see here, the research we've done, the videos that you all have already watched, Joe Mixon will have a better season than Najee Harris. We got a couple of other running backs that might be a little bit tough for you. And maybe this one's even more tough. But in the comments down below, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, who are you choosing? Why? And I will pick one of those comments that tell me why to be a draft guide winner. DeAndre Swift and Javonte Williams. This one may end up being a tough gamble for some of you out there. Right now, they're going in kind of the same area. Swift is going at running back 9, 15 overall, and Javonte Williams at running back 11, 18 overall. And the reason that I'm putting these two guys up against each other is because they both have question marks that are making us go, how high does their ceiling technically go? What's the question for Javonte Williams? Well, it's Melvin Gordon. How many touches is Melvin Gordon going to get? The question for DeAndre Swift is, will the Lions utilize him correctly? I mean, if you've watched the first 2 weeks of Hard Knocks, Deuce Staley is extremely tough on DeAndre Swift. Now, he thinks he could be very special, but if you've looked at it so far, there are some areas of improvement that DeAndre Swift really, really needs to make a stride in, and I think he can, but will the Lions take away touches on the ground to Jamal Williams at all? They really like Jamal Williams. He is a Dan Campbell guy. Are we going to see Jamal Williams really start to eat in DeAndre Swift's carries if DeAndre Swift cannot be more efficient this year? So, for offensive output, I'm going to give Javonte Williams offensive output here. His offense is going to be much better. You've got the veteran high-end quarterback in Russell Wilson. We're taking him over Jared Goff. Yes, I like the weapons that Detroit has, but it's hard to turn your back on Javonte. It's hard to turn your back on Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. So for that instance right there, and the fact that they're going to be in a division that they're probably going to have to throw it a whole lot, I'm going to give the nod to Javonte Williams there. Now, in terms of team, this one was a lot closer, but I ended up going with Javonte Williams on team. Now, DeAndre Swift is going to have a much better offensive line. But again, Javonte Williams is going to have a quarterback that is going to be able to sling it better and offensive weapons that are going to be more explosive on the outside than what Detroit has. That is going to lead for a better opportunity for Javonte Williams to really see some high output weeks. So when you take a look at consistency, the consistency for me is with DeAndre Swift. 100% going to be with DeAndre Swift, because we are going to see a guy who on a weekly basis is going to be a big part of the game plan. Whereas with Javonte Williams, because of how tough that division is and how much they're going to have to throw it, and the fact that you have Melvin Gordon there taking touches, that's a tough one. That's a tough one for me to say. Javonte Williams is going to have an opportunity to be more consistent than DeAndre Swift. And as far as ceiling goes, I also think that is going to be with DeAndre Swift for the mere fact that I just told you. Okay? He's going to be a guy who's going to contribute in the passing game. He's going to contribute on the ground. He has an opportunity to be the focal point of the Lions offense. The Lions want to run the football. The Lions want to be a hard-nosed team. If Swift can take that step forward, he's going to be a guy that's going to get more than enough touches on a weekly basis. But the floor for me is actually going to be for Javonte Williams. Just because even if he doesn't get a ton of touches a week, we saw last season him be way more efficient and dynamic with those touches than what we've seen from DeAndre Swift on the ground so far in his career. From a schedule standpoint, it's going to be DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is going to have a much better time than what Javonte Williams will. Now, I will say this. Both of them popped up on our easiest stretches of schedules. The Denver Broncos from week 10 to 15, and the Detroit Lions from week 13 to 17. So that popped up there. Yes, those are going to be some tough schedules to go through. Now, both of them also have the best start to the season. Okay, both of them have the best start to the season. But where it really breaks down, and the reason I end up giving it to DeAndre Swift, is because of his playoff schedule being one of, if not our highest and easiest playoff schedule to end the season. Detroit at the end of the year is going to get Jacksonville, Minnesota, the New York Jets. Then they're going to get Carolina and Chicago. They don't have the same defense that they've had in years past. Now, they will finish the season at Green Bay if you play a Week 18 championship, but for those of you that don't, which you shouldn't be, Week 17 is going to be against Chicago. So I will take that schedule for DeAndre Swift to end the season over Denver and Javonte Williams. Now, Denver to end the season, you've got a tough matchup against Baltimore, potentially a tougher one against KC. You do have Arizona in week 15, but then you've got the Rams, you've got KC, and then you've got the Los Angeles Chargers again. So again, there could be some tough matchups there for Javonte Williams to end the year. Now, gut feeling. If I take a look at it and I say, Kyle, this is what I think we're going to see next season, it's DeAndre Swift for me. DeAndre Swift is going to win this matchup. And I believe most of you out there will probably agree that DeAndre Swift should be going over Javonte Williams. And that is who I've got winning this battle, because I do believe that the upside is going to be there. The opportunity is going to be there. He's going to be a focal point, and he's not going to be held back by a guy that was also a top 20 option at the running back position last year. Melvin Gordon has not lost a step. He's still doing plenty of good things. Javonte Williams is going to lose touches to him, even if he gets 60-40. Even if he gets 60-40, those 40% going to Melvin Gordon are still going to be high output numbers. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Some tough draft day decisions that hopefully I've helped you work through. And now you know who you're going with this season. Hit the like button for me at 1,500 likes. I'm going to be giving away a draft guide to somebody in the comments below that tells me why they're picking Najee Harris or Joe Mixon. If you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, you got to hit that subscribe button and stick around for all the content we got coming your way. Peace out. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And I will catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on third down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. Fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that chub life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this Headliner Nation. I'm a headliner.